What's up? My name's Dylan, aka Skid Valve, and today I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to plate and weld the diff in your drift car. Let's go ahead and get started. So, here we have my buddy Dawson's E46 342 gear ratio BMW differential that he needs welded up for his basic beginner drift car that he's trying to get into drifting with. And I said I'd offer to weld it up for him and show so other people can learn how to do this on their own. The first step is going to be to actually get this cleaned out, because all this oil that you can see is still in the diff will cause contamination in the weld and cause what's called porosity, which makes a weaker weld. And we do not want that, because we don't want the welds to fail and the diff to be broken and no longer be able to drift with. We want to be able to use it, of course. So first things first, cleaning it out. To get all the oil out, I like to use brake cleaner. Pretty simple. Get everything nice and coated. I've got a pan right here to catch all the fluid, and I've got everything kind of at an angle. And really just wash any contaminant you can away. Pull the diff over so we can get to the top part. All that black stuff you see washing off makes a massive difference, because that'll all get down in your weld. You really want to get down in between the gears, so on and so forth. Really get it all cleaned out. All that buildup from years and years of not being used or cleaned out or swapped. Then what I'll do, I'll take some dirty rags that I don't care about. Like this one, for instance, after I put some gloves on, because gear oil and brake cleaner is nasty. We'll go in and just kind of try and push some of the stuff out, anything that may contaminate, as far back as you can get in there. Clean it, so on and so forth. Give it a rotate around, see if you can get all of it. Right? That's pretty clean, but it's not fully clean. So the next thing we're going to do is light it on fire. So, the reason I set this on fire, after I sprayed some brake cleaner at it, was to basically burn off any leftover contaminants with some brake cleaner. And the reason we do that is because any of those leftover contaminants in the places we couldn't get are going to cause porosity in the welds, and we do not want that. Now is probably a good time to mention that I don't want to leave this burning for too long. Mainly because if it burns for too long, it will start to melt seals. See, I poured the rest of the diff fluid out. I'm gonna go grab some water and put that out, and I'll come back. All right, so I brought it back in after putting it out. You'll notice it is kind of sooty now, but that's not that big of a deal. The soot won't contaminate as much as leftover oil will. Plus, you can just kind of spray it off with the brake cleaner. Now, before you weld on it, obviously, you're gonna want to let that brake cleaner evaporate off. I'm gonna pull my pan over a little bit real quick. And don't drop the diff, Dylan. So while that cools and the brake cleaner evaporates, I'm going to talk a little bit. So, with these diffs, in particular open diffs or LSDs, you'll have to be careful of the clutch packs a little bit, but they're all relatively the same. The only diffs that are really different are torsional diffs, where they have a big casing around it and you can't see everything in there. Those get welded differently. I plan on making a video in the future on how to do those, but this is just for your average diff. Now, some solid reaxle cars like Mustangs, it's the same style setup, but you're gonna have to pull this carrier out to weld it, just because it's kind of hard to do it in the car. Whereas with like a BMW 350Z, IS300, so on and so forth, you can pull the whole entire diff out. And that's what Dawson went ahead and did for me, which is pretty basic and self-explanatory. It's also different from every car to car, so I'm not gonna show you all that. But basically, he pulled it out, he drained most of the fluid out, and gave me the diff to weld. So, going into welding it, there's a couple different ways to skin a cat. Most of them work. A lot of people like to just weld the spider gears and call it that. A lot of people like to plate these. I like to do a hybrid of both. So on Ford 8.8s, for instance, on solid axle cars, I won't plate them at all, just because it's strong enough and you got to be able to get in here for C-clips. Now on a diff like this one, where they never plan to pull these out ever again, I will just weld the plate in here and weld this all to heavens. So I'm going to actually be showing you that. The trick with the plates is to kind of just try and get it to land on the center of each of these so you can weld around them. And then what we'll do is we'll come in deep in here, and you can see where the gears mesh with each other. Maybe I can show it better over here. You can see right in front of my finger where the gears meet each other. Around this, we're going to try and put as much weld there as possible, put the plate in, weld around it, and then fill all these cracks in here. We're going to fill in the corner here, around here, and the corners up there, around the plate, and just basically fuse all this so it's one single piece. And I'll be able to show you better once it's done. It's going to be kind of hard to see while I'm doing the welding though. So next up, I'm going to go ahead and get some measurements, and we'll go ahead and cut the plates out. So I measured it out. This one is 1.25 inches, kind of halfway, and then 2.5 this way. And you can see where I kind of marked it out on this plate. And I'm going to take my angle grinder, cut it out. I'm going to cut another one, check that they fit, and then I'll come back and show you how they should look. Sorry for the weird cut there. I tried to burn down my shop. I forgot to move that pan out the way and it caught fire. Luckily I had the fire extinguisher on nearby that now needs to be recharged. It was right there. I'll get that recharged and we'll be good to go. But as you can see, this first plate's done. Touches the top. I'll get a better light. You see it touches the top gears, touches the bottom gears when I push it in, touches the side gears. It's ready to weld. So I'll make another one like that, and then we'll start welding this son of a gun. Alright, so as you can see, I've got the diff set up in the bench vise, not going anywhere where I can work on it. I'll loosen it up to move it when I need to. But from here, with the welding torch, I can get into everywhere I need. Then I can also take my two plates over here, set them in, be good to go. Now, if you're curious, I'm using 1/8 inch steel gusset plates, like $5 for a 6-inch by 6-inch plate from my local metal store. You just want to use something really thick. A lot of the problems you see is people that don't put enough heat in it and they use too thin of a plate. Granted, you don't always need the plate. To go over welder settings, I'm actually using a Harbor Freight Titanium Unlimited 200. Any big high amperage 240 volt welder will work for you though. I'm using C25 gas, will help limit spatter, and the gas also helps with penetration down into the diff. I'm on 030 wire, set pretty much to the max, 300 at 19.5, right there, which is about the max you can run on this wire on 240 volt. The key is to get it really hot and get the penetration really deep. I'm actually probably going to hit this with the torch before I weld it, just to get it that little extra bit hot. The hotter it is, the more this penetrates, the more it fuses the metal together, the stronger it's going to be. And that's pretty basic. So we're going to start with down here in the grooves, right here, just kind of getting them up before where the plate goes, and then we'll set the plate in, weld the plate in, and we'll just start welding all the way around. You can see just how hot it is, but basically went through once the plate was in. I tacked it in the corners and just filled these corners, filled it up, filled the crevices, filled the back side of the spider grease, filled it around. Can't quite get as much in there, so you just try and get as best as you can, and it'll be strong enough, especially if you got it hot enough with enough thick steel. This diff is locked, not going anywhere. So all that's left to finish this up is flip to the other side, do the same exact thing. Weld the corners, put the plate in the middle, weld around the outside. Pretty simple. Like I said, use C25 gas, big wire, 240 volt welder, you want to get hot. And like this thing is hot. Like if I spit on it, it'll boil. See it boiling right there? You could probably cook an egg on it. See it steaming up my camera? This whole diff is really fucking hot right now. So sometimes it may take a minute for it to cool down before you can actually spin it again, especially because it's hot, but also because as metal gets hot, it expands. So it may be hard to turn for a minute. You also may get some slag on the things. You can use some anti-spatter spray, but I also find that if you just drive the car, it'll break that little bit of slag off and it really doesn't do any damage. Yeah, your results may vary, but this is the basic concept. So we're gonna flip it around, get you on the time lapse, and get this finished up. So as you can see, about halfway done with the other side. And I did want to mention something. On all welders, there is a thing called a duty cycle. And it's normally stated on the top of the welder. So for mine right here on 240 volt, it's for every 10 minutes of continuous welding, got to give it 6.5 minutes of resting. So what happens is this gets really hot over time of continuous use, and you got to let it cool down. It's pretty simple. It's to stop you from burning out the welder, essentially. But yeah, so it's going pretty good. See the splatter, like I said, there would be, especially seeing there's some like oil on this side. We're gonna clean that up, but for the most part, that's really not gonna do anything. A lot of it's just gonna stay stuck to the diff. You can really tell though, I'm really melding it together. I got that whole corner glowing at one point. Just gotta do the other side. And after that, it's just letting it cool down. So as you can see, this thing is still piping hot, but it is done. I can rotate it by hand, even though, because I got gloves on, obviously. But it rotates just fine. There's a couple little hiccup points that you gotta kind of work it through, because there's a little bit of slag in the gear. You can knock that out yourself, or you can just let the car self-clearance it. It'll knock it out and you'll be just fine. That slag will lose to the big gear and the engine. Other than that, it's ready to go. You just got a little bit of slag to clean out in the bottom with some brake cleaner once it's cooled down and won't catch fire. Once that's done, clean your cover off, put some gasket maker on, fill it with fluid, you're ready to drift. This is rock solid. I've done it on 20 plus cars. Some see like 800 horsepower. Yet to have one break on me doing it this way. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Don't hesitate to subscribe. It really helps the channel out, especially if you like the video as well. Check out any of my other videos. I'm building a comp car and I'm going to plan on competing in it. Without further ado, though, I'm going to end this video here, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.